The transit of transiting Saturn forming a harmonious trine aspect to natal Pluto represents one of the most monumentally powerful, structurally transformative, and gravitationally grounding periods an individual can experience in their lifetime. In the archetypal taxonomy of astrology, Saturn and Pluto are the two heaviest, most uncompromising forces of the cosmos. Saturn is the master of the material plane, representing time, absolute strategy, discipline, concrete form, clinical logic, and the structural parameters of reality. Pluto, conversely, is the lord of the underworld, representing raw evolutionary power, primordial survival instincts, deep psychological currents, hidden resources, and the systemic processes of death, regeneration, and absolute purging. When these two intimidating, outer planet heavyweights engage in a flowing, cooperative trine aspect, 120°/circ, the traditional terror, destruction, and agonizing friction associated with Pluto transits completely evaporate. Instead, they merge to create the ultimate signature of engineered empowerment, calculated rebirth, and weaponized endurance. It is a cosmic window of profound authority, where your primal power, deepest psychological insights, and hidden resources are stripped of all chaotic, volatile unpredictability and upgraded into a highly focused, clinical, and unstoppable mechanism for long-term construction and absolute personal sovereignty. To fully comprehend the deep, psychological architecture of this transit, one must analyze how it systematically restructures the internal ego defense mechanisms and alters your relationship with the concepts of power, control, and vulnerability. Under harsher Saturn-Pluto cycles, such as the conjunction, square, or opposition, an individual often experiences a crushing, apocalyptic collision between external systemic limitations and internal survival panic, resulting in intense power struggles, structural collapses, or an overwhelming sense of helplessness. However, the trine aspect removes this adversarial tension entirely. Saturn does not block or deny Pluto's intense evolutionary drives. Rather, Saturn acts as a precision coolant and an airtight, industrial conduit, channeling what would otherwise be a volatile, explosive Plutonian volcano into a laser-focused beam of tectonic energy. You develop an extraordinary, almost clinical capacity to look at your grandest ambitions, deepest psychological shadows, and ultimate survival strategies with absolute emotional sobriety and strategic detachment. The urge for frantic control or destructive obsession is naturally replaced by an unshakable, long-range patience. You stop reacting to the psychological provocations of your environment, and you begin the methodical, step-by-step execution of a master chess strategy designed to completely consolidate your personal power. During this period, your cognitive and analytical faculties operate with an unprecedented level of systemic efficiency and structural logic. If your natural cognitive default is to analyze data to find the underlying order and hidden machinery of the world, this transit provides the ultimate operational climate. Your capacity to sit with dense, complex, or highly intimidating data systems, such as macroeconomic trends, intricate legal frameworks, psychological trauma patterns, or advanced esoteric structures like astrology, reaches a level of absolute mastery. You possess a unique, X-ray vision that allows you to see straight through the superficial presentations of any system, individual, or situation, straight down to the skeletal architecture and hidden motives underneath. You break down vast amounts of abstract or occult information into clean, logical, and highly scannable frameworks with the detached precision of a forensic scientist. The psychological exhaustion and obsessive loop thinking that typically disrupt major personal transformations are entirely absent. You move forward like an administrative machine, restructuring your life from the absolute roots up, fully aware that the compounding effect of your disciplined actions makes your ultimate dominance over your reality mathematically inevitable. Psychologically, Saturn trine natal Pluto brings a profound, quiet stabilization to your internal defense mechanisms, completely rewriting how you protect your perimeter and interact with the outside world. Pluto represents where we are prone to experiencing deep disillusionment, betrayal, and systemic exhaustion from past interpersonal or professional dynamics. When Saturn stabilizes this point, it creates an impenetrable, self-contained fortress around your private life. If you are a naturally private individual who harbors an intense disdain for uninvited external curiosity, emotional volatility, or the invasive opinions of others, this transit upgrades your psychological immune system to its peak historical efficiency. You naturally develop a form of cold stoicism. To fully grasp the massive, tectonic engineering of the transiting Saturn trine natal Pluto cycle, we must analyze the exact psychological and structural crystallization that occurs within the deepest bedrock of your psyche. In archetypal psychology, Pluto represents the raw, primal repository of the subconscious mind, the seat of the survival instinct, the drive for absolute control, deep-seated power dynamics, and the psychological shadows left behind by early childhood betrayals or systemic disillusionment. Saturn represents the principle of containment, administrative law, logic, and structural reality. When Saturn forms a harmonious, flowing trine to your natal Pluto, it acts as an industrial stabilizing agent poured directly into your internal magma chambers. The volatile, obsessive, or anxious undertones that Pluto can generate when left unstructured are instantly organized by Saturn's cold, analytical intellect. You are granted the rare, unshakable capacity to look directly into the absolute roots of your life, your psychology, and your environment with the detached, unemotional gaze of a military strategist auditing a battle plan. The engineering of psychological autonomy and resource mastery. Under standard Pluto transits, an individual can feel consumed by an intense, frantic need to control their environment, often resulting in internal hypervigilance, emotional exhaustion, or gridlocked obsession. When Saturn structures this energy through a trine, that chaotic tension is converted into a cold, calculated, and highly mechanical execution drive. If your cognitive default is to analyze data to find the underlying machinery of the world, this transit upgrades your mind into a strategic supercomputer. This psychological alignment accelerates your capacity for systemic mastery. The blueprinting of hidden dynamics. You develop an unparalleled ability to look straight through the superficial presentations of human behavior, societal structures, or economic trends. You easily map out complex, abstract, or hidden data systems such as attachment theory, family trauma frameworks, or advanced esoteric mechanics like astrology, and synthesize them into clean, logical, and highly scannable blueprints. The maximization of vital reserves. You look at your emotional, psychological, and material energy through a lens of absolute financial realism. If an environment, a lifestyle habit, or an interpersonal relationship requires a high expenditure of your resources for a low or volatile return, it is quietly, logically, and permanently phased out of your reality with zero emotional residue. Absolute composure under pressure. When external chaos, systemic turbulence, or interpersonal drama attempts to breach your perimeter, your system refuses to register stress. You look at threats not as emotional provocations, but as simple mechanical problems that require a precise, calculated strategic realignment. Your internal equilibrium becomes completely immune to collective hysteria or external panic. Fortifying the perimeter and the strategy of invisibility. Pluto governs the ultimate defense mechanisms and the drive to protect oneself from betrayal or exploitation. When stabilized by a Saturn trine, your innate preference for strict privacy and your intense disdain for uninvited external curiosity are elevated into a sophisticated, fortress-like lifestyle strategy. You realize that a loud, aggressive display of power or a defensive argument is actually a sign of vulnerability. It reveals your hand to the outside world. During this period, you master the silent, unshakable boundary. Strategic ghosting. You develop a terrifyingly efficient capacity to quietly, seamlessly drop out of low-value social dynamics, toxic relative webs, or draining professional environments. You do not argue, you do not seek closure, and you do not explain yourself. You simply fade from their radar behind a wall of absolute silence, leaving no energetic hooks behind. The cloak of sovereignty. You find a deep, restorative satisfaction in working completely behind the scenes, away from the public eye. You recognize that information is a vital resource that must be hoarded, and that by keeping your true plans, financial status, and daily routines hidden from the uninitiated, you protect the absolute structural integrity of your life. The elimination of social dependence. Your self-esteem anchors itself entirely within the reality of your own competence, self-reliance, and physical accomplishments. Because you no longer look to societal narratives, collective metrics, or external authority figures for validation, the opinions and expectations of the outside world lose all power to influence your psychological state. Executing the permanent, structural exit. Because Pluto rules the total, root-level elimination of what is dead or obsolete, and Saturn rules the concrete execution of long-term form. Subscribe, like, and share.